Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and I'd like to share some thoughts about my article that was recently published titled Preston Sprinkle's Strange Interview with Sheila Gregoire and Rebecca Lindenbach. This was published by Baptist News Global on April 13th, 2023. So, Preston Sprinkle has been on a bit of a roll lately with a number of problematic podcast interviews. He did one recently with Shanti Feldham, who is the author of the book For Women Only. And many people, this is a very popular book that was involved with and promoted with a lot of the evangelical churches that I was involved with. And it's got a very complementarian mindset where it talks about like women are not allowed to tell their husbands if they're driving in the wrong direction because it might harm their masculinity. You're hearing echoes of John Piper in this and some of the things he's talked about regarding the way women can or cannot give directions to men. And then he also had one on an interview with Josh Butler, who wrote the book Beautiful Union that has caused a lot of controversy lately. And I'm going to be looking at that one next in my next video for my article that just actually came out today. But in this particular video, I'm talking about an interview he did with Sheila Gregoire and Rebecca Lindenbach. And so basically, these are two women who wrote The Great Sex Rescue, and they've recently written a book called She Deserves Better. And they surveyed 20,000 women for the first one and 7,000 women for the second one, and that were evangelical, and got their perspectives on sexuality and their experience of all of that's involved with the evangelical narratives around that. And so Lindenbach talks about how purity culture today is a bit more subtle, because a lot of people, it's very trendy to say that you're against purity culture of the 90s and to even recognize that it caused a lot of harm. And yet there are so many people today who still repeat the same assumptions and disguise them with different words. And so it may be harder to detect. And so Sprinkle, it's interesting because Sprinkle ends up basically doing that throughout the interview. He reveals a rather stunning lack of awareness for somebody who is heading up the Center for Faith and Sexuality, and he ends up repeating a lot of purity and rape culture myths. And it's interesting to see how the feedback to this article has been. It got a lot of buzz on Twitter, and there were some people who were saying that I wasn't charitable with the article, or that I had a predetermined conclusion, or that I made their discussion out to be more combative than it was. And I think, yes, they were polite to each other in their conversation that they had, but there were really significant differences that they had with Preston Sprinkle. And these weren't just inconsequential differences. They were differences that had massive consequences for women. And so I could have written it as being about this nice little back and forth that people were having, but I think that would have taken away from the weight of what their conversation, the implications of their conversations had for women. And I wanted it to have that weight. And that's why I quoted some of the women that they mentioned that had sexual violence done to them in their lives. And so and I shared their perspectives on this particular discussion. So really what this comes down to is that in the evangelical circles, sacralized violence against women really comes down to retributive justice and complementarianism, because retributive justice says that you deserve the worst possible experience ever. Anything above that is a bonus. And complementarianism says that women are to be submissive and silent. And so when you get men who are sexually violent men, they're going to look at those messages, and it's going to resonate with them, and they're going to have built-in excuses for the way that they treat women. And so part of our healing process needs to involve listening to women and affirming their voice, and that is what I do in this particular article.